Good evening. I'm Captain Marcus Brooks. After 28 years in the skies, I thought I'd seen every kind of passenger. I was wrong. Tonight's story is about a woman who just wanted a quiet flight home, and the 10 minutes that turned her into a legend all over again. This is the story of Flight 512. Lieutenant Colonel Elena Kessler rested her forehead against the cool window of seat 14C, watching the Texas Panhandle scroll by, 39,000 feet below, a patchwork of wheat fields and dirt roads stretching toward a flat horizon. For the first time in 14 months, she wasn't in uniform. The denim jeans felt strange against her skin after endless months in a flight suit. The plain gray sweater her sister had mailed her at Kandahar still folded in its original packaging, until this trip felt almost indulgent. Her commanding officer, General Diane Osei, had all but ordered her onto this flight. "Kessler, you've been running on adrenaline for 2 years. Your squadron's home. Reports are filed. If I see you in my office before the 15th, I'm sending the flight surgeon to physically remove you." So here she was, just Elena Kessler, visiting her mother in Fort Worth. Not Lieutenant Colonel Kessler, not Sabre, not the pilot whose tactical improvisation had kept a downed convoy alive outside Kandahar long enough for extraction. Just a tired officer on United Flight 512. She still sat ramrod straight, hands resting precisely on the armrests, feet flat on the floor, old habits that 14 months hadn't touched. The flight attendant, a woman with kind eyes and graying temples, name tag reading Donna Reyes, refilled Elena's coffee with the practiced precision of someone who'd poured at altitude for years. She lingered a beat too long. "Military?" Donna asked quietly. Elena hesitated. She'd hoped to disappear into the anonymous crowd of 127 travelers. "Air Force," she admitted. Donna's face softened. "My son's Marine Corps, 2 deployments." She lowered her voice. "I can always tell. The way you sit. Thank you for your service. Whatever it was, wherever it was." As Donna moved down the aisle, Elena settled back, watching the small, ordinary dramas of civilian travel unfold around her. A businessman in 14B muttering into a Bluetooth headset about quarterly numbers, a young mother across the aisle wrangling twin toddlers, a group of college kids 2 rows back sharing earbuds and laughing at something on a phone. None of them knew the quiet woman by the window had once talked a battle-damaged A-10 back to a forward base with half its hydraulics shot away over the Hindu Kush. None of them knew her face had once appeared briefly, and against her wishes, on a recruiting poster. To them she was just another traveler, maybe a teacher, maybe someone's aunt. Elena closed her eyes and let herself, for the first time in longer than she could remember, simply be nobody in particular. She had no way of knowing that in less than 2 hours the skills that had made her a legend in one theater of war were about to be all that stood between 127 strangers and disaster. The first sign of trouble was a vibration so subtle Elena felt it in her bones before her conscious mind caught up. Her eyes snapped open, instantly, alert. 14 months of combat flying had wired that reflex permanently into her nervous system. She checked her watch. 2 hours, 11 minutes into what should have been a routine flight. The vibration pulsed through the airframe with an irregular rhythm, too low to be turbulence, too persistent to be nothing. Around her, other passengers barely noticed. Elena knew better. She'd felt this exact sensation before, in an A-10 over hostile terrain, when a hydraulic pump had begun failing beneath her. The subtle shudder became a noticeable shake. Coffee sloshed. The businessman beside her glanced up mildly annoyed, assuming rough air. Captain David Reyes's voice, no relation to Donna, just a coincidence of names, crackled over the intercom, carrying that practiced airline calm, meant to reassure. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Please return to your seats and fasten your belts." Technical difficulties. Elena's blood went cold. She'd used those exact words herself once, radioing back to base with an engine fire eating through her wing. The shudder intensified into a violent shake. A laptop snapped shut. Someone's phone clattered to the floor. Then came the sound no passenger wants to hear, a grinding metallic screech from somewhere deep in the fuselage, lasting maybe 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, Elena's mind ran through a dozen possibilities. Hydraulic failure, primary system, likely secondary too, backup pumps engaging, straining, possibly failing. Captain Reyes's voice returned, the composure cracking just enough to show the strain underneath. "Flight attendants, prepare the cabin for emergency procedures. Passengers, please review your safety cards." The word emergency cut through the cabin. Oxygen masks dropped with a collective thunk. The young mother across the aisle gasped, pulling her twins close. Somewhere behind Elena, a voice whispered, "Oh God," on repeat. Elena felt the nose pitch downward, at an angle too steep for a controlled descent. This wasn't preparation for landing. This was an aircraft fighting its own flight controls. Around her, panic spread. The businessman hyperventilated into his mask. A woman prayed in rapid Spanish 2 rows back. But Elena Kessler's mind had already shifted into the cold, analytical calm that had kept her alive through years of hostile airspace. She recognized the pattern immediately. Catastrophic hydraulic failure, flight controls likely operating on manual reversion, meaning the pilots up front were fighting to control a 180,000-pound aircraft using raw strength and whatever mechanical leverage the cables still gave them. She wasn't in the cockpit. She was a passenger in jeans and a borrowed sweater, officially powerless. Except Elena Kessler had never accepted powerless as a category that applied to her. Donna Reyes had been a flight attendant for 11 years. She'd handled turbulence medical emergencies, one attempted hijacking early in her career, but she'd never moved through a cabin quite like this one. As she made her way through the tilted aisle, checking masks, projecting calm, she didn't fully feel her attention kept returning to the woman in 14C. While everyone else showed some degree of panic, this passenger sat with almost unnatural composure, eyes moving systematically around the cabin, not with fear, but assessment. When Donna reached row 14, Elena caught her arm, firm, not desperate. "Donna," she said, using the name with the casual authority of someone accustomed to being heard in a crisis. "I need to talk to the captain." "Ma'am, I need you to keep your mask on and stay seated. The pilots are handling it." "I'm a pilot," Elena said. "United States Air Force. I've dealt with hydraulic failures before. I can help." Donna hesitated, training warring with instinct. The aircraft shuddered again, tilting further. Protocol suddenly felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. "What kind of pilot?" "A TENS mostly. I've brought damaged aircraft home before." Elena's eyes didn't waver. "I've been exactly where your captain is right now." Another violent shake decided it. Donna reached for her master key. "Follow me." As they fought toward the front, Elena grabbed the intercom handset. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lieutenant Colonel Elena Kessler, United States Air Force." Her voice carried through the cabin with a calm authority that cut through the noise. "I want everyone to listen carefully. We are going to get through this. I need each of you to stay calm and follow every instruction from the crew. We have excellent pilots up front, and I'm going to help them bring us home safely." The effect was almost immediate. Crying reduced to sniffles, whispered panic replaced by focused attention. At the cockpit door, Donna's key hand shook slightly. Inside, Elena found Captain Reyes and First Officer Mia Torres fighting the aircraft with the grim determination of professionals, watching their margins shrink by the second. Sweat beaded on Reyes's forehead. Torres's knuckles were white on the yoke. "Colonel Elena Kessler, Air Force," Elena announced, cutting through the checklist chatter. "I'd like to help if I can." Reyes's eyes flicked to her jeans and sweater, skepticism plain on his face. "You've lost primary hydraulic pressure," Elena said, scanning the panel with rapid, practiced efficiency. "Backups failing or already gone. You're getting maybe 15 to 20% control response. You're using differential thrust to hold heading and fighting the yoke just to stay airborne." Both pilots stared. The assessment had taken her 12 seconds, and every word was accurate. "Your angle of attack's increasing. You're losing elevator authority." Elena continued moving to the jump seat without waiting for permission. "You've got maybe 10 minutes before this becomes unrecoverable. Nearest suitable airport?" "DFW," Torres said automatically. 19 minutes at current speed. "Too far," Elena said grimly. "What about Dias? Any military field with long runways and crash equipment closer than that?" "How do you know all this?" Reyes demanded. "Because I've been exactly where you are," Elena said, reaching for the headset. "Different aircraft, same physics. I brought an A-10 home with total hydraulic failure once. Your Boeing's got redundancies, my Warthog didn't, but the math is identical." She keyed the radio. "Fort Worth Center, United 512. This is Lieutenant Colonel Elena Kessler, United States Air Force, call sign Sabre, now assisting the flight crew. Request immediate vector to nearest suitable runway and full emergency response." The pause that followed told her everything. "United 512 Fort Worth Center, confirm call sign Sabre?" "Confirmed. Sabre is on station and ready to work." At Fort Worth Center, Controller Marcus Bennett froze mid-reach for his coffee. He'd spent 4 years as an Air Force controller before joining the FAA. Everyone who'd served near a fighter wing knew that call sign. Sabre wasn't just a name. It was a story pilots told each other in ready rooms. His supervisor leaned over his shoulder. "Did she just say Sabre?" Bennett was already pulling up emergency protocols and military liaison numbers. Within 90 seconds, alerts were flashing across 3 installations. At Dias Air Force Base, the command duty officer pulled Elena's service record, half of it redacted, all of it legendary. At Randolph Air Force Base, Major Tyler Patterson was reviewing training schedules when his secure phone buzzed. "United 512 emergency, Sabre on board. Assistance requested. Viper, he called to his wingman, Captain Jessica Hunt, already moving for her flight gear. Guardian Angel mission. Sabres aboard a damaged airliner. Jessica stopped mid-stride. Every fighter pilot in the wing knew the Sabre stories. The emergency landing that saved her wingman's life outside Kandahar. The tactical manual now required reading at the academy. That's Sabre, and she needs us. Within 4 minutes, 2 F-16s were rolling down the runway at Randolph, afterburners painting the Texas sky. Back in the cockpit, Elena was deep in what fighter pilots called the zone, hyper-aware, calm time, slowing, complex problems, collapsing into manageable steps. Brian Denver, no Dallas Center, I need you to coordinate with approach control, she said to Reyes. We're going to come in fast and steep. This is going to be non-standard. Copy that, Sabre. Tyler's voice, arriving on frequency, now carried the calm of someone who understood exactly what he was hearing. Hawk flight in escort formation, 500 feet off your wing. Through the windscreen, Reyes and Torres watched 2 sleek gray fighters slide into position, guardians against the darkening Texas sky. Brian, Elena said, turning to the captain, I need you to start thinking like a test pilot. Everything we're about to do is going to feel wrong. Trust the physics. I've been here before. Reyes's hands stayed steady despite the sweat on his brow. 23 years flying commercial. Never had a passenger save my aircraft before. And I've never been a passenger in someone else's emergency, Elena said, the faintest smile crossing her face. Guess we're both breaking new ground. At Dyess Air Force Base, word spread through the ready room like wildfire. Colonel Harold Voss, Elena's former squadron commander, stood surrounded by off-duty personnel monitoring the emergency frequency. That's my pilot up there, he said quietly. 20 years in this business, never seen anyone fly like her. Master Sergeant Lawrence Cho, a crew chief who'd serviced Elena's aircraft through 2 deployments, nodded grimly. She brought home birds that should have killed her, sir. If anyone can save that airliner, it's Sabre. On the ground at DFW, Fire Chief Robert Jackson coordinated 37 emergency vehicles staged along the runway. Retired airline pilots had begun arriving at the perimeter, asking to observe. Social media was already filling with the hashtag Sabre512, not seeking spectacle, but expressing faith in a pilot whose reputation had been built on impossible recoveries. Inside United 512, the passengers who'd learned who was helping fly their aircraft began sharing the news down the rows. Nicole, the young mother with twin boys, told an elderly couple nearby. The pilot helping them, she's a real war hero. The businessman found himself in quiet conversation with the college students, all of them suddenly united by something bigger than the emergency itself. 2,000 feet, Torres called out. Airspeed, 185. Good, Elena said, eyes scanning displays that told the story of an aircraft fighting physics with damaged systems and human will. Brian, start your flare at 50 feet. Keep it shallow. We fly this airplane onto the runway. We don't drop it. 500 feet, speed 182. The runway rushed toward them, a ribbon of concrete lined with flashing emergency lights, cutting a corridor through the gathering dusk. 200 feet, speed 180. Flare now, Brian, Elena said, voice cutting through the tension with practiced calm. Easy pressure back. Let her settle. That's it. The main gear touched down with barely more impact than a routine landing. But with no hydraulic pressure for wheel brakes and limited steering, they were still traveling at highway speed with finite runway ahead. Reverse thrust maximum, Elena commanded. Denise, Mia, call out our speed. 100 knots, 90, 80. The engines screamed in protest, fighting to slow 180,000 pounds of momentum. Emergency vehicles paced them on the parallel taxiway. 60, 50, 40. United Flight 512 rolled to a stop with 800 yards of runway still ahead. Silence in the cockpit, broken only by 3 people breathing hard and the distant wail of approaching emergency vehicles. Ladies and gentlemen, Reyes said over the intercom, his voice thick with exhaustion and disbelief, welcome to Dallas-Fort Worth. The cabin erupted applause, tears, quiet prayers of gratitude. Elena, still in her gray sweater and jeans, wasn't finished. Brian, Mia, let's get these people off safely. The job isn't done until everyone's on the ground. As the first stairs rolled up to the aircraft, Elena caught her breath at what she saw through the window. Military personnel, active duty and retired, had gathered on the tarmac. Word had traveled through the aviation community faster than any official channel could carry it. Major Tyler Patterson stood near the front of the formation, still in his flight suit. Behind him, faces Elena recognized from across her career, former squadron mates, pilots she'd trained, ground crew who'd kept her aircraft flying through years of deployment. Colonel Kessler, Tyler called out as she stepped onto the tarmac. On behalf of the United States Air Force, we request permission to render honors. "Permission granted," Elena said, her voice steady despite everything churning underneath it. Tyler snapped to attention and saluted. Then, like dominoes, every uniformed person present followed active-duty retired enlisted officers representing every branch, united in respect. Elena returned the salute with the same precision she'd learned as a cadet 22 years earlier. A small boy broke away from his mother in the crowd of disembarking passengers and approached her with fearless curiosity. "Ma'am, are you really a fighter pilot?" Elena knelt to meet his eyes. "I am, and today I got to help Captain Reyes and First Officer Torres fly your airplane home safely. My dad says fighter pilots are the bravest people in the world," the boy said. "Are you brave?" Elena considered the question seriously. "I think brave people are just regular people who do what needs doing when others are counting on them. Today, everyone on that airplane was brave. Your mom, the other passengers, the whole crew. We all worked together. Will you sign my boarding pass?" "I'd be honored," she wrote carefully. "Remember that heroes are ordinary people who choose to do extraordinary things." Lieutenant Colonel Elena Kessler, USAF. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Elena reflected on the strange turn her quiet leave had taken. She'd boarded United 512 as a tired officer seeking anonymity. She was leaving it as something else, not just because of the emergency landing, but because of what 3 hours in a damaged aircraft had revealed about the strangers who'd become allies and the quiet courage that lives in ordinary people the moment it's asked of them. That's the story of Flight 512. Elena Kessler boarded that aircraft, hoping to disappear for a few hours. Instead, she reminded 120 strangers and an entire community of aviators watching from the ground what it looks like when someone answers the call without being asked to wear a uniform first. At 35,000 feet, everyone wears the same seatbelt, but some people are carrying a lifetime of readiness underneath their sweater, waiting quietly for the moment it's needed. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. There's always another flight, and always someone extraordinary sitting quietly in the seat you'd least expect.